Publishing for Profit podcast is brought to you by Ghostwriters & Co. Earn more money by publishing better content and learn how to increase your thought leadership so you can build your brand. Head over to ghostwritersandco.com for more information. That's ghostwritersandco.com. And now, your host, Joel Mark Harris.
Hello and welcome to the Publishing for Profit podcast. This is your host, Joel Mark Harris, and we are doing something a little different today. I have my good friend, Justin Lamb here, who is actually going to be asking me some questions instead. Justin Lamb is an amazing photographer, brand expert, and entrepreneur. And somebody I look up to for pretty much everything. So if I have a question, I ask him and he always has the answer. We did this in reverse, I guess a couple days ago, and I was able to ask him some questions. I was unable to stump him. So let's see if he is able to stump me today. Justin, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Joel. How are you?
Good, I'm good. So fire away, do your worst.
Awesome. Well, I think we're going to start you off nice and easy. One of the first questions is what does a thought leader need to do in order to want to publish a book in the first place?
So I think let's start with why do you want to be a thought leader in your field? And the answer to that is it enables you to distinguish yourself from your competition. I think that's super important in today's world because you're not just competing with Joe Blow down the block for business. You're actually competing worldwide. Especially with COVID now, everyone is online, and so when you're looking for anything, you're looking for a photographer, for example, you are competing with so many different people who have cameras. With technology these days, it makes it really easy just to call yourself a photographer. So you need to figure out what makes you different, what makes you able to stand out. And the answer is become a thought leader in your field. So become an expert. That can look, many different ways. It could be, for, taking the photography example again, it can be, what sort of lighting should you use for weddings, for portraits, for headshots? What should you dress? How should you dress? As if you want to present some sort of image, and give your intended audience a some information, and then when they see you as somebody as an expert, then you become a thought leader. And one reason you can put that into a book is because it's a good calling card for for a business person. It's something unique. Everyone has a website, right? Everybody has some a blog. Everybody has a card that they give out, but not everybody has a book. And once you have that book, then you are able to, you can use it in different, I guess, arenas. You can give it out as a lost leader, for example. You can give it out as a lead magnet. You could sell it on Amazon. And when you say you're a published author, then you're able to, people look at you differently. They're like, oh, this guy has enough information. They know enough about a subject to be able to put it into a book. And then you're able to, you're able to distinguish yourself from your competition. You're able to charge more. You're able to work with the people that you want to work with. And I think that's super important in today's world.
And so is it better that I write it or find a ghostwriter?
I think it depends. There's no right answer for this. I think that, a lot of entrepreneurs are busy. They, they're running their business, they're selling to their clients. If it's not in their core skill sets, then I think that's when you go and hire somebody to write it for you or to help you write. If this is something that you truly enjoy, that you think that you can add value for, then I would tell you, go ahead, write it yourself, or at least try. I think I would encourage you at least to try and do it yourself. See if it's something that you enjoy doing. But if it's just going to be painful, if it's something that you're going to hate, I would say, get a ghostwriter to help you out and guide you through the process, because they're the expert. They've done it before. They will do it much quicker, much faster, and oftentimes better than you can do it yourself. And you can focus on your own business, on running your business, on selling to your clients, and the day-to-day operations. Because let's face it, everybody's busy, and you really need to be focused on your core skill set.
And so I think a fear many people have when they're, looking to create their own book is when you hire somebody externally, and this happens more often in the blog space, or social media, there's a disconnect between the voice of an individual and their writing style or their persuasion style. How does that get bridged when you're deploying a ghostwriter per se?
That's a good question, because a book is very personal, right? You're basically taking your heart and you're putting it on the page. You're putting everything into this piece of work. And so you really need to find somebody who gets you, right? And the only way you could do that is through multiple interviews. Like, Justin, like we're going through this process right now, right? It it's not something that, I can just do with one interview and I can say, okay, done. I know exactly what you mean. I know exactly what tone I should be using. It's really getting well acquainted with your test, with your subject, with the author, and figuring out, and asking them questions. Oh, what do you mean by this? Or how do you think about this? And oftentimes it's listening more for the way that they present their subject matter rather than the actual facts itself. So it's a very difficult skill to learn, and not everybody can do it. That's why not every writer should be a ghostwriter. It's really tricky to be able to write in somebody else's tone. And I think the other thing too that you should be aware of is what sort of authors does the entrepreneur want to emulate? Do they like the Tony Robbins kind of style? Do they like the Donald Trump kind of style of writing? What like, figure out what authors they like and what they want to emulate. That can really help with your style. If the person has written their own blog posts, their own writing, if they've started the book, that can also be a really great place to start and to really capture their style. Also talk about this openly with with the author, and figure out, okay, like what tone do you want to use, what do you want to capture in this writing, and when you can have an open conversation about it, that really helps and is able to it enables the ghostwriter to capture the style that they want.
So here's an interesting question, and I've seen different people in this arena, and I want to know what your thoughts are about it. But there are some people who can come up with a topic, but doesn't write anything about it, and they try to leave it to the ghostwriter to go and research and write that. What's the advantages or disadvantages of going that route versus a person who has their own intellectual property and is, talking to you about that?
Mm. I think it's this is actually something that you have, you've taught me, Justin, is really setting that expectation. I think that if you leave it, so I've written books where the author was just like, go write about this, right? And they're completely happy with the end product, right? But I mean, at the end, it's not really their voice, right? And that I think that is used for more like a lead magnet. Um, and I think that the authors who are really put their heart and soul, they spend their time with the ghostwriter, that's when you kind of get the magic, and that's when you get the unique perspective um, of the individual, right? Because I think that is when the author's true authority, true thought leadership really shines through. Those books are generally, they're the ones that are going to make the bestseller list, right? They're the ones that are going to sell really well because they have um, they have that, yeah, like that extra special magic. It's really that that point of view that is uh, that will get them to the next level. So I think, if possible, make sure that you figure out what kind of book you're writing, what both for the ghostwriter and for the author. Um, if it's just for some like downloadable PDF that they want to throw up on their website to get somebody to click and opt into their email, then that's when the ghostwriter can go off and research the topic and just write and has a little bit more free reign, if you will, over the actual book. But it's not going to be something that's that they're going to pass on to their friends. It's not something that's necessarily going to be gifted at Christmas or for a birthday present. It's when you work with the author and the ghost writer, when they collaborate together, when they sit down and do the work together, that's when you get the something special. And that's when the true magic happens.
So when I'm writing a book, is co-authoring a book with a ghostwriter tend to stay in the non-fictional genre, or can you ghostwrite fantasy and sci-fi um, books as well?
You can do whatever you want, basically. You can um, I've co-written a sci-fi before, and that was a really interesting process. Generally, it is nonfiction, but it doesn't have to be. I think it really depends on what you want the end product to look like and who's writing it and what their goals are, right? So if it's just for fun, if they just want something that will kind of entertain them, that they can kind of throw some ideas together and get the ghostwriter to kind of polish off or to finish and then put out into the world, then I think that's fantastic. But more often than not, it is somebody who's looking to make an impact, and that is generally nonfiction. That's a self-help book, that's a business book, maybe it's a memoir, and that is when you are able to kind of reach that broader audience. So I think it really depends on the person and the personality and what they're trying to achieve at the end.
So do all books have to go to a main publisher? Like, do you have to commit to finding a publisher before you know connect with a ghostwriter, or can you self-publish? You know, what are the pros and cons of both?
Again, I think it depends on your end goal. Mainly when people come to me, they don't really know they don't really know the difference between self-publishing and publishing traditionally. Uh, they yeah, so there's definitely that education piece that goes into it. I'd say 90% of the time I tell them that they should self-publish, and there's several reasons for that. Generally, you can make a bigger impact if you self-publish. It's way easier to self-publish than it is traditionally published, and you actually, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you already have that a following, then you can actually leverage that following to sell more books and make more money, which is great. The only reason I would say you want to go the traditional route is that if you want to become a New York Times bestseller, and there's definitely some pros and cons to becoming a New York Times bestseller or, USA Today bestseller or whatever. Um, but it's definitely a vanity piece. And I think having that conversation up front is very beneficial. The traditionally published route, it takes way longer. I think that's like a huge difference. It generally takes between 2 to 3 years from, I guess, concept creation to it takes maybe like a year to finish the book, and then maybe another 1 to 2 years to find the right agent and then find the publisher. And so a lot can happen in those 3 years, right? And there's really not that many, benefits to traditionally publish a book. Unless you're Stephen King or a Malcolm Gladwell, they're not going to put, a publishing house is not going to put, thousands of marketing dollars. They're not going to create an ad campaign for you. They're not going to create billboards for you. They will help you leverage your audience, but they're not, that's pretty much the extent of what they're going to do for you. So if you know how to do that already, you have a little bit of marketing prowess or a marketing background, then again, that self-publishing route is, I think, really beneficial because you can really, again, leverage that audience and sell the book yourself. The other thing I think too that is important to note is with traditional publishing, once you sign over those rights, you pretty much have to dust your hands of the project because you have no control over what happens to your book. You can negotiate movie rights or foreign rights if you want, but a lot of the time, the publisher keeps those. With self-publishing, you're able to keep those rights. You're able to use you can find interesting and new ways to promote it. You can do like a Christmas discount if you want. If you want to put your ebook at 99 cents for like 5 days for like a Boxing Day sale, for example, you can do that if you're a self-publisher. If you've signed over the rights to a traditional publisher, then you can't. The price that is set is the price is set. There's nothing you can do about it. So I think, as we move forward, you'll see more people going the self-publishing route because of you're able to be more flexible especially with the marketing. James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, I think he self-published, but he has a very interesting way of promoting his book, right? So, if you buy your book, in a certain time frame, he did like this promotion, you get extra chapters with it, or you get a discount, which is kind of like it's a pretty cool way of enticing people to buy the book. And again, with traditional publishing, you're unable to do that. You basically have to do what the publishing house tells you.
Interesting. So when we're talking about self-publishing, does that mean that you just publish online, or are you still making physical books?
You can do both. More people are, I'd say about 80% of the market right now is ebooks. The other interesting thing, which I didn't mention, is of course audio. Audio is becoming increasingly huge, and again, if you publish traditionally, you generally have to give up those audio rights. Whereas with self-publishing, you can again create a new revenue stream through doing audio. And again, I mean, there's a lot of there's extra cost to that because you have to bear the brunt of hiring the actors or the person to read the book. If you don't want to read it yourself, you have to upload it to Audible. But sorry, what was the question again?
I was like,
I lost my train of thought.
So do you have to, traditionally for self-publishing, are you publishing digitally only, or can you make, a hard copy book?
Yeah.
And how does that process go? Is there a major difference between one and the other?
Yeah. So if you publish through Amazon, you can do both an ebook and a soft copy. You can't, if you want to do a hard copy, like a hardback cover, with like the nice thick spine and cover, you have to go through Ingram Sparks. But again, those aren't huge sellers these days. So it's really easy just to do a soft cover of your book. You just need to format it a little bit differently from the ebook. But it is kind of nice to have that soft cover, which you can sell at events or hand out to people, which is great. You just need to design the cover and you're pretty much off to the races.
So why is there a difference between soft cover and hardcover?
It's just, I get, it's a little bit of vanity, I think, too. Again, is like having that nice hardback cover. It lasts a little bit longer than the soft cover. But there again, like it used to be back in the day that publishers would first publish a hardback cover, and that was for like the real like for the people who really wanted the book, and you would spend maybe $40-$50 on a hardback cover. And then once that run was finished, then they would publish a softback cover, and then that price point ran, probably between like $15 and $20 on average. But that model has, again, through Amazon, has kind of gone, through by the wayside. And, it's kind of a little bit of a wild, wild west situation where you can publish the soft cover, you can publish the hardcover, you can publish the ebook cover all at the same time. And basically the consumer has the option to choose whatever they want. And I think, unless, you're a dear friend, you really want to support the author, like people are going to go for the cheaper option, which is either the ebook or the softback cover.
Hmm. And so when you're publishing a book and say you want to tap into the audiobook, version of things, how is that different? I mean, is that a totally different platform at that point? A totally different avenue of work that needs to happen?
Yeah, so that's another platform altogether. There is again, there's several options out there. There is the Amazon option, but it's if you want to do it yourself, you have to make sure that you're actually a good speaker first of all, and that you're the right person to read your book. Oftentimes that's not you, right? So if that's the case, you actually have to hire like a voiceover artist or some sort of actor to read the book, and they need you need that good quality voice. First off, you need the software, you need a good mic, right? So it's definitely a different type of I guess a different type of revenue stream for you. And it's like a whole new, I guess, addition almost. Like it's kind of like if you have a book, it's more akin to making that book a movie rather than like a hardback or a softback sort of situation. So you almost need to go back to the drawing board and start kind of from scratch and figure out, are you going to make enough money through audio sales to make it even worth it, right? And then how to do that, and doing that whole process is another step altogether.
Hmm. So when you're onboarding a client for ghostwriting, then what are some key things that a person should be asking a ghostwriter when they start to engage in them?
Good question. So experience is a good one. Looking for sample writings as well. If what sort of genre they've written in before, if they're an expert in a certain field. If you're writing something a little bit technical, like or if you're looking for a specific voice, making sure that that person can actually accomplish that is important. Making sure that the personalities are compatible is also super important, because you're going to be spending a lot of time together. I think there has to be a level of trust as well. So making sure that that person is able to complete the work, is able to complete it on time. Obviously, money is a big issue that you have to sort out. Um, and then just making sure that that it's a good fit, I think, as well. Um, so yeah, I think those are sort of the main points you have to touch on when you're looking at whether that person is right for you.
And so, what kind of person to expect in terms of a timeline for completion? Are they, for starting a project, are you talking like 1 month, 1 year, 6 months? What is a good starting point to at least set your baseline and
Mm.
framework? Of obviously, every book changes depending on the content, but is it wrong to expect that a ghostwriter is going to turn it around in a month?
Yes. So I think a good time frame is about 7 to 8 months. And again, like you said, it really depends on like if you have a first draft already, then of course it's going to be a lot quicker. But if you just have an outline, obviously that takes a lot longer. Um, Obviously length of book. Again, if you're just looking for like a lead magnet, something that's quick and dirty, then that can be completed probably in about 3 months. I guess if you're looking for something around 30,000 words, then I'd say yeah, a couple months is a good time frame. Um, I think too, it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish, right? I think if you're really trying to get a good book that is able to reach a mass audience, you want to take your time. You don't want to rush it, and that's I would say you're probably looking for about a year process for that.
Cool. And you know, it just popped in my head. We talked about, when you're self-publishing and you get a soft copy or a digital copy. For the soft copy, you're still sending it to a printer on your own, yeah? Or does
No.
Amazon? No.
So the good thing about this is that Amazon will actually take care of everything for you. And this is why Amazon publishing has been so popular, in the last 10 years, is because, Justin Lamb orders Joel's book. I don't actually see that book. So Justin will hit, pay. It will go through one of Amazon's fulfillment center. They'll actually print it for you and they'll ship it directly to you. So I don't see anything. I don't actually have to do anything, which is really nice. It's a nice seamless process. And this is again like one of the reasons why Amazon is so hugely successful, is because they've figured that out.
Oh wow! So I don't actually have to pre-buy inventory.
Yeah, no, it's I've made the mistake of pre-buying thousands of my copies of my books and then unable to sell them before. So the good thing about that is that yes, you don't need to kind of peddle. I don't you hear stories about famous authors before they became rich and famous. They would buy truckloads of the book and they would try and sell it at the side of the road. You don't have to do that anymore, which is really great. There's no upfront cost to you for self-publishing. The only thing is if you want to, you should get a professional editor and a professional cover designer. So those are the only two real hard those price, the cost to you is the editing and then the cover design.
So isn't the editing part of your job as a ghostwriter though?
So yes, it is. I farm that out too. I've got several contractors I use because I really believe that editing is, you can't self-edit, or it's really hard to, and you need a fresh set of eyes. When you're ghostwriting, you're really into the story. You've probably spent quite a lot of time with the actual author, the person you're writing the story for. and you are going to miss, you're going to miss something. You're not going to be able to, you're not going to have that fresh set of eyes, that global picture, if you will, of the story. And so that's why an editor is super important. And that's why I contract, several different editors out, because they're able to come at it with a fresh perspective, a fresh set of eyes, and see what's missing and see where the gaps are in the story. Maybe it's logical gaps. Maybe it is just like a flow issue. Maybe it's just like spelling, but that extra set of eyes is super valuable, and it prevents any mistakes from happening, and it prevents anything that is that you don't want, not being able to put that best, the best book out there, which is ultimately the goal, is to make sure that your book is as best as it can be.
What about titles? Is that the responsibility of the author, or is that the ghostwriter, or how do you make sure that you get a good title?
Yes, that's a very good question. I think it's generally it depends. Sometimes authors have come to me with titles, and I'm like, no, I don't. I was editing this book, and I think the title was Alex or something, and it was a mystery thriller book, and it sounded like a biography. And I was like, your title has to sound like it's part of the genre, because you have to think about the reader's expectations, right? When they pick up a book, there's some expectations inherited, built into when they start the first page, right? And so we did some brainstorming back and forth, and we came up with a title that worked for the genre, and they were super happy with. A lot of the time, I do leave it up to the author to come up with at least the initial title, because titles, obviously, as you know, are super important, and it's very personal, right? And it's a very personal decision. So generally, it's something that the author comes up with. I sometimes will try and nudge them, into a certain direction, depending on what, on my expertise, I suppose. But I don't think there's ever been a time when I've just come up with the title and they've gone with it. It's definitely a collaborative process, or something that they've come up and they've had even before they engage me.
And then, so for the design of the cover and stuff like that, is that something that they can rely on you to outsource for them, or do they have to find that themselves?
So generally I have, again, several contractors that I use that are super amazing to design the cover. And again, there's definitely some readers' expectations. Like a suspense thriller, the cover will look a certain way. A biography will almost always have the person's picture on the front, right? So we work together to come up with a good cover. Covers are super important, as you know, to make sure that you have to think about the marketing, and there's a lot of different aspects that go into a cover design. It's not just like a pretty picture. So it's something that I have, some expertise in, and I can use, and I guide them to make a decision that will benefit the book.
Cool. I think that's all the questions I have for the moment, but it didn't look like I didn't stump you today.
Well, I think that's a good thing. Thank you, Justin, for questioning me and for being on the show. We've spent a lot of time together recently, so I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No problems. Glad you're not sick of me yet.
And likewise. Take care, Justin.
Perfect. Thank you. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Publishing for Profit. Please like and subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.